Do you have any insight into the question of why the Pakistani army seems so uninterested in fighting the Taliban? I mean, you would think it would be kind of an urgent matter for them. They've got an insurgency in their country. It's taking over some of the most sort of scenic parts of the country. Anyway.
Yeah,
and how far is it? How far are they now from the capital? I mean, it's 50 miles.
Couple of thoughts. One is maybe the leadership really hasn't signaled to them, we really mean it, this is an existential threat to the state as we know it, and this is the big fight. They've been spent so much of their careers being trained to think that India is the enemy, that I think they really have not completely shifted gears to say, guess what, there's a more imminent threat, and it's us. It's our own society, it's the guys across the border, to the west, not to the east. So I think that there is a deep resistance based on all these years of training and acculturation about what would be the war that they need to fight. I also think that there's ambivalence about fighting your own citizens and anxiety that the society would not welcome cracking down. Having said all of that, I do think when we look at the Swat Valley, when we look at Bunir of last week, etc., it may be that we're at a turning point where they're getting mad, they're getting revved up because I think they know that it's not just their international image and credibility that's at stake, but it's actually, the stability and security of Punjab and Sindh. It's getting closer to the urban heartland of Pakistan, and so I think they can no longer see these kind of tribal frontier lands as somehow almost on another planet. I think it's getting too close to home now.
Okay, that is an explanation I've heard before. Let me tell you why I find it not fully satisfying. In fact, we know that Pakistan will, if it wants to, will fight a counterinsurgency campaign, and of the most ruthless, cruel, atrocious sort. They did it in East Pakistan a generation ago. Now they lost ultimately because of Indian intervention, but and I'm not, it was an appalling disaster and no endorsement at all of what they were up to. But if the question is simply one of fighting willpower, the willingness to kill your own people, that they have demonstrated ample willingness to kill their own people. And they've demonstrated an ample willingness to undertake a counterinsurgency campaign for interests that one would think would be less vital to them than having than an insurgency 50 miles from their own capital. So there has to be something else going on than just the squeamishness of the Pakistani armed forces, because those armed forces are not squeamish, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't have an answer, but again, I'm hoping that they're stepping up to the plate now.
But the reason it's such a burning question, it raises that our mental construct is that we have this uncomfortable ally, Pakistan, that won't always do what it's told, that maybe is corrupt, that maybe is self-seeking, but that is basically on the level. And so in this sense, it's often conceptualized a little bit like South Vietnam, that we don't trust them, we have doubts about them, we don't think they're very effective, we think they've got the wrong priorities, but we actually think there is a difference in the South Vietnamese state and the Viet Cong. The idea that they are one and the same people is an idea that would seem alien. But you look at what's going on with this insurgency, and you think there's just not a sense. I mean, they got very agitated about Bengali insurgency. How come they're not so revved up about this Pashtun Taliban insurgency?
Well, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I do think that they're struggling with how to handle it. I think it's partly our presence and the use of military force on their territory that they don't seem to be in control of, although some of that is theater for their own domestic consumption. They probably know more than they're willing to acknowledge, and they actually want us there secretly. But publicly, I think they're squirming over whether they are the sidekick to the great superpower or whether they get to make these decisions themselves. So, look, I don't disagree with you. I think this insurgency is hugely threatening to Pakistan as we know it. Pakistan is a complex state of great both potential and great consequence in the regional economy of the Indian Ocean, in peace and stability in South Asia, et cetera. I do think they've been through, a lot of changes in leadership. They don't always bring the most talented that the society has to offer into their senior civilian decision-making positions. The military has been the institution by default that has been running the country for a long time, and there's this uneasy balance between this very, I would say, novice political leadership today and what the military leadership wants. But so
here's something I'm very